Kailash, that the values that Hiraba leaves behind is something we'll remember, cherish, and try to follow in our life as well. Condolences to the Prime Minister. And yes, this is a journey which a life well lived, values best exemplified. I thank all my guests for joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for watching this side.
Detailed evaluation is still awaited.
So yes, a detailed evaluation is still awaited as to what is the kind of injuries that he has ascertained. But yes, what we have been told.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with CNN News 18. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you're watching Plain Speak. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with the Gyanvapi survey mandated by court, and with it, the unraveling of true history of the structure in Kashi. There are the deniers, of course, who want to bury their head in the sand and refuse to accept the destruction of the ancient temple in Kashi. The same was done against proof for decades in Ayodhya too, mind you. Then there are others who will question the timing. But the reality is, both Kashi and Mathura claims are not new. This fight has been on for centuries. Remember, the Committee of Management of Anjuman Intizamiya Masjid had gone to the Supreme Court seeking relief against the proceedings of the lower court in this case. They had argued against not only the maintainability of the suit itself, but specifically the ordering of a survey by a commission and any orders that may follow from the findings of that survey, which has, of course, come into public domain. Claims of a shivling in the Wazu Khana, which is today's mosque premise, and now even a claim that the shivling has been desecrated and that there have been attempts to destroy evidence of the Hindu temple. The first and biggest takeaway is that the matter will continue. The Muslim side wanted the matter to be completely declared unmaintainable, but there is no bar on the proceedings by the Supreme Court, although it has been shifted from the civil court in Varanasi that was hearing the matter to the district judge in Varanasi. What possibly stole the most headlines today was this observation by the court that effectively ratified the survey, which is the bone of contention, that determining the character of a religious place is not barred by the Places of Worship Act. All that one is asking for is that the most holy, the holiest of holy Hindu places, which were destroyed, Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura, must be returned to them. Is that really too much to ask? Remember, the case is a civil suit filed by Hindu devotees seeking the right to worship inside the premises of the Gyanvapi Mosque, or on the grounds that it was a Hindu temple and still houses Hindu deities. But there are multiple other pleas, including a title suit, that are ongoing in various courts. And the decision on the right to worship plea can have ripple effects on other cases as well. Not to forget, the larger Hindu temple reclamation movement, which includes Kashi and Mathura most prominently, will also be impacted by whether the district court in Varanasi declares this plea to be maintainable in law. The main objection by the mosque committee is that such pleas are now barred under Places of Worship Act 1991. The claim in Kashi does not rest upon the finding of the shivling. It's incidental. Everybody knows the recorded history of the temple in Kashi.
Shivani, that a temple to Vishwanath was demolished and the Gyanvapi Mosque was built has not been disputed by anybody. Why are we even discussing that?
What bothers me most about this debate and about how Sumant framed the situation is, why are Hindus being put in the dock? We are the victims here. Why are you asking, what are you going to do next? No. The first question is, we are the aggrieved party all
Yes.
around the world, be it the Native Americans in Canada, in the United States, Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Everybody is looking to them and apologizing.
हजारों वर्षों के इतिहास का, जिसका इतिहास रहा हो, सभ्यता रही हो, ऐसे महान राष्ट्र को उसको अपना सांस्कृतिक न्याय पाने का नैसर्गिक अधिकार है और उस राष्ट्र के प्रत्येक नागरिकों का कर्तव्य है कि उसको वो सांस्कृतिक न्याय दिलाएं।
मैडम, ये बात तो कोर्ट डिसाइड करेगा कि मंदिर तोड़ी गई और वहां पर मस्जिद बनाई गई।
आप नहीं मानते कि मंदिर तोड़ा गया?
कैसे मान लूं? वो कोर्ट फैसला करेगा ना। कोर्ट में जब बात है, अंडर द ट्रायल जब केस है, आप कैसे कहेंगे, मैं कैसे कहूंगा? कतई नहीं कह सकते आप ये।
मौलाना जी, ये हिस्ट्री की बात है, ये लॉ की बात नहीं है। हर चीज कोर्ट से नहीं आती है।
देखिए सर, आप लोगों का ये संवैधानिक हक था कि आप कोर्ट को गए और कोर्ट ने आपकी सुनवाई की और वहां पर सर्वे हुआ। हम इसको मानते हैं कि आपका संवैधानिक हक था, आप गए। अब मेरा संवैधानिक हक है कि मैं उसको अपोज करूं, मैं हाई कोर्ट जाऊं, मैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाऊं। जैसे कि अंजुमन मस्जिद वाले जा रहे हैं, चले गए हैं कोर्ट को, तो उनका वो संवैधानिक हक है।
निरंतर वहां पे उसके आसपास पूजा, श्रृंगार गौरी की पूजा होती थी, पंचमुखी हनुमान, कुबेर जी की मूर्ति, गंगा जी की मूर्तियां, वो सब पूजा वगैरह होती थी। उसके तहखाने में जाके पूजा करते थे, वहां पे व्यास परिवार है, वो सब करते थे। इसलिए उसका चरित्र कभी समाप्त नहीं होता।
When the character, the conversion cannot take place in a protected site, what will be the outcome of survey? What will be the utility of the survey?
नहीं, सही सवाल पूछ रहे हैं अश्विनी।
मैं जवाब देता हूं।
मौलाना साहब, कानून में लिखा है कि 15। अरे मौलाना जी सुन लीजिए, आपका सवाल मैं समझ गया, उसका जवाब सुन लीजिए, बहुत टाइम बहुत कम है।
मुझे बोल।
आप ये कह रहे हो कि अगर रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर डिफाइन हो भी जाएगा तो फायदा क्या होगा? यही तो फायदा होगा। कानून ये कहता है कि 15 अगस्त 1947 को किसकी क्या रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर था। अब सर्वे के बाद, रिसर्च के बाद, इस पूरे खुदाई के बाद, जो शिव मंदिर, शिवलिंग मिला है, उसकी टेस्टिंग के बाद, अभी जरूरत पड़ने पे और वहां खुदाई करने के बाद ये क्लियर हो जाएगा कि 1947 को वो मंदिर था कि मस्जिद, या तो मंदिर रहा होगा या मस्जिद रहा होगा।
द कंटेंशन इज ओनली दैट द एडवोकेट कमिश्नर हैज फाइल्ड इट्स रिपोर्ट। कोर्ट हैज ऑलरेडी इनवाइटेड ऑब्जेक्शंस, then the parties are required to file their objection to the report. Report is not going to be implemented at present. Under Order 26, Rule 9 and 10, the Commissioner report is always subject to evidence to be led by the parties. The only contention was that it is for the court to consider the feasibility that the Commissioner report has been filed. Certified copy has been supplied. The chips of videography that has not been supplied, they should also be given. And if this Commissioner report is taken into consideration, so that will throw light on the subject.
The first question or the objection that we have been raising since day one was the maintainability of this lawsuit. As per the law, as per the Places of Worship Act 1991, this lawsuit in itself is not admissible, is not maintainable, and should have been rejected at the very first day itself. So all the proceedings in the belonging to this lawsuit are invalid and illegal, be it the survey, be it any other order given by the civil court. All these proceedings are invalid. So now the court, the sessions court today itself has ordered that it would hear the maintainability of the suit.
जो एडवोकेट कमीशन की रिपोर्ट आई है, एडवोकेट कमिश्नर महोदय ने अपनी रिपोर्ट में इसको शिवलिंग लिखा है, और जो छेद करने की बात कह रहा हूँ वो मैं अपनी बात नहीं कह रहा हूँ, जो कोर्ट के रिकॉर्ड पे वो बात कह रहा हूँ, 63 सेंटीमीटर का उसमें छेद किया गया है। तो पैशंस को तो इन्फ्लेम वो लोग कर रहे हैं शिवानी जी, जो ये कह रहे हैं कि वहां पे आज हमें वजू करने की इजाजत दी जाए। इनके वकील ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में हमारी आस्थाओं का खिलवाड़ करते हुए, और ये पता लगने के बाद भी कि वहां पे शिवलिंग मिला है, वहां पे वजू करने की जिद की, और इसीलिए जब ये शिवलिंग मिला था तो हमने उस एरिया को सील करने की मांग की थी। और मैं एक बात आपके सामने बहुत जिम्मेदारी से कहना चाहता हूं कि वो शिवलिंग है कि फवारा है, इसका जांच हो ना। हम तो कह रहे हैं जांच हो, पर जब हम कहते हैं कि इस चीज की जांच हो तो वो कहते हैं कि नहीं, आपका केस ही नहीं चल सकता है।
What is the need? Why even go back in history and open up these old wounds? Even if what happened was wrong, why go back in history now? How would you respond to that?
Well, let's go into the history overall. And in the history overall, some of these sites were destroyed more than once. And the fact that they're in the situation they are is an old wound that everybody can see. For example, you can see the part of the temple on the mosque in Kashi. And we also have to understand that India is an independent nation since 1947, of course. Now, prior to that, India was under largely foreign rule in many places. We, of course, know of the British rule. But even under the so-called Islamic rule, is largely a Turkish rule, by the way. Most of these people were Turks, whether it was the Delhi Sultanate or the Mughals. So under both of these, Hindus had no rights to reclaim their sacred sites that had been taken because the government was different. And there were many attempts. For example, Ahilyabai Holkar helped restore Kashi Vishwanath in the late 18th century. And the Marathas restored a lot, like Ujjain. There's a Jyotirlinga there. And the only problem was the British came and took power, I think, by 1818. And so they stopped those processes. So this means that majority Hindus were under minority rule during these Turkish Islamic period and British period. Now, after 1947, majority Hindus are being told that their first duty is to protect the minorities. So in other words, the majority is not protected in the Islamic, British, or now even modern period.
The fallout of the Nupur Sharma comments row is that multiple FIRs have been filed against her now, at least in 2 states, Maharashtra and Delhi. She has also been receiving death threats, some directly, some generally in public domain that can be seen and heard by others as well. She has been provided security too by the Delhi police. There are videos of kids carrying objectionable posters asking for death for Nupur Sharma, her beheading, Sartan se juda posters. At other places, cops have been attacked blatantly. Security forces have been sparred with. On the surface, a lot of these protests that never took any permissions from the police were demanding the arrest of Nupur. But if you scratch the surface a little bit, there were clear death threats too. We're not even showing you a picture of a Nupur Sharma effigy hung on a street from a pole today. What is the message being sent? At the center of the issue is hurting religious sentiments by comments or otherwise, and freedom of expression. Now, we have often discussed just where that line is between offense and justified expression. It is, in most cases, a thin line, and people can have differing views, even on the same expression. Protests in the name of profit and against Nupur Sharma's comments, spontaneous or otherwise, took place with demonstrations, but in several places they descended into stone pelting, blockades with arson, destruction of public and private property, and even attack on cops and public officers. If death threats in the name of hurt religious feelings are okay, if those outraging over Nupur Sharma's comments will also equally condemn threats against her and others. When 2 Nupur Sharma supporters were harassed and arrested, we asked the same question: is it a crime to support her now? Well, it is not just a crime, it is a death sentence, it seems. A man who reportedly supported Nupur Sharma has been hacked to death, beheaded in ISIS jihadi style in broad daylight in a market in Udaipur. Killers have apparently also gone on video confessing the crime and then threatening the Prime Minister of the country. So it hasn't ended with riots alone, it has now come down to murders. This is a chilling reminder of what happened in Paris in October 2020 when a school teacher was beheaded for showing prophet cartoons to school children. Of course, most of us will remember Kamlesh Tiwari, who was shot dead and his throat slit in India, and the Charlie Hebdo killings. This is what you get for mollycoddling fanaticism and what you get for pandering to extremism. While the case the bench was hearing was on clubbing of multiple FIRs against her, the judges went on a rant on her comments instead and linked them to crimes that have taken place since the outrage against her comment. The court not only refused her the relief, asking if Nupur has a threat against her or if she has become a security threat, they also lashed out at her for, quote, fanning emotions across the country. There are some massive questions over the implications of such observations, even if not in order, as this is the apex court, and what is said inside court can have implications outside in today's state. The court said that the petition smacks of Nupur Sharma's arrogance. The court also went on to say that being party spokesperson is not a license to incite, referring to her TV debate after which her comments came to light. The court goes on to say Nupur single-handedly responsible for the unrest situation in the country. It said that Nupur should apologize to the whole country. In fact, they criticized the apology she had tendered via social media. And finally, and this is perhaps the most damning statement, the court said that Nupur's statements are responsible for unfortunate events like the Udaipur murder. But what also needs to be discussed is whether speech rules, what is allowed, what is not allowed, not just legally, but socially, can be a one-way street when you have several communities involved. Is there a double speak, a double standard involved, depending on who is making the comment and against whom?
It was repugnant, it was vile, the Prophet cannot be attacked, he is sacred, he's infallible. Having said that, the other things that you're talking about, the FIRs as a fallout, is a blowback of what has already happened. The real story is what happened. The real story is what has been happening for the last 8 years, in which the members of the BJP have been given carte blanche to say what they wanted, and this culminated in an extremely transgressive statement in which they had no control over.
All over the country, protests are spontaneous because the Muslims in the country all over the world have very much interest. This is the part of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a part of their faith. So that is why they themselves came out and started protest.
But when people, just one second, but when other Hindus and non-Muslims are listening to these kind of violent protests, what mutual trust will be there? When such violent protests, beheading calls, Sar Tan Se Juda, violent protests across, already Nupur Sharma faced action. India has taken a very categorical stand that we will respect all religions.
As a practicing lawyer before this honorable forum and before other courts of this country, this is depressing and disappointing to say the least. This is a textbook instance of victim blaming and victim shaming. That a routine plea, which is regularly taken before the court when a particular litigant is the subject of multiple litigations across the country for the very same cause of action, which should have resulted in transfer and consolidation to a single jurisdiction, was forced to be withdrawn. So it's not just a question of whether these observations found their way into the order. The end result is that she was denied a very legitimate and reasonable relief. Transfer to a single jurisdiction is par for course.
Yes.
So first of all, that denial, frankly speaking, exposes her to serious legal and, dare I say, illegal and unlawful harassment.
Yes.
Okay. And this, coming from the highest court of the land, is seriously problematic. 2, the outcome is not the result of a particular problem with the petition itself, but because the court feels that her conduct is arrogant, it reeks and smacks of arrogance, and it's an overreach of the magistrate's jurisdiction. I fail to understand when someone is specifically the subject of multiple litigations across the country and no single high court can give that particular remedy. The only option available to a particular litigant is to approach the Supreme Court.
Right.
So where else is she supposed to have gone to for justice? The International Court of Justice or to the Supreme Court of Pakistan? I don't understand. In terms of the remarks that have been made, I'm sorry to say they have the effect of prejudging the issue on merits. And the question of apology is not something that should have fallen from the highest court of the land. It is not for the Supreme Court to have made these unwarranted remarks under any circumstances.
Because, it's not just Nupur Sharma and Asad Uwaisi or the 15 other or 20 other people in these 2 FIRs that have been done. There's so many names of so many people now will come up, located in different cities. And of course, everybody is going to say now witch hunting. First you said no action taken. And then when action is taken, it will be called a witch hunting, So I don't know. Let's see what happens, but the way I see it is it's a non-starter, in pure policing and investigation terms. It could just become I think a fear factor tool just to see that hate speech doesn't happen.
We have got the constitutional right to demonstrate, protest, but this is not the way, because we don't have the right to do it, vandalize the things and resort to, arson, and then carrying the placards or the posters, beheading the BJP spokesperson. And Islam also does not allow this actually. So this, in fact, we as a community condemn this, and it is the duty and the responsibility of every.
Tough questions must be asked. We've seen this happening over and over and over again.
No, that's what I'm saying.
In the name of religion, in the name of sentiments, in the name of democracy, in the name of a law being passed.
जो माहौल बना दिया गया है इस वक्त, पूरा माहौल ही कुछ इस तरह का बना दिया गया है कि हेट स्पीच हर तरफ से आ रही है. इस पे we need to think about this, we need to consider upon this, we need to ponder upon this. जो सिचुएशन है आप चारों तरफ देख लीजिए. मे बी आई डोंट नो असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब ने क्या कहा और अंडर व्हाट चार्जेस ही बीन फ्रेम्ड, बट द थिंग इज दैट कि जो मौजूदा हालात हैं, the basic responsibility goes upon the people who belong to the ruling party. आप देखिए बीजेपी की जो तमाम लीडर हैं लगातार वो किस तरह की हेट स्पीचेस का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर अनुराग ठाकुर क्या बोलते रहे जंतर मंतर पे, आप उनके जो अभी आपने देखा नुपुर शर्मा, उसके बाद प्रवीण जिंदल, they are official spokesperson of BJP, and later on BJP said that they are fringe elements.
So the party sacked them now. What about Asaduddin Owaisi? What about his brother? Why doesn't Owaisi act against his brother?
It can be any XYZ, be it Asaduddin Owaisi, be it Nupur Sharma, be it Praveen Jindal, or be it Talha Amin. Anyone who speaks something that goes against the constitution, that goes against the law of the land, he should be booked and he should be charged, and he has to face the law.
This is exactly what they wanted for her. All this talk about the case not progressing, about the BJP being not harsh enough, about the government not taking any action. This is what all of these extremists wanted for Nupur Sharma. And today they are extending the same treatment to her supporters.
Shivani, the fundamental problem of both liberalism and secularism in India is that it is selective. For example, you have a case of a celebrated author who is not allowed to come back to India, who tweeted with this shared and fraud, as he himself called it, over the predicament in which Nupur Sharma found herself in. And he's supposed to be a liberal icon, right? So much for his liberalism. So much for the secularism and people who swear by rule of law in this particular case, who have kept mum. They don't want to come out. They don't want to say openly.
And these people are also not discussing or condemning the slogan which called for the beheading over the blasphemy.
Yes.
So this entire mindset, you can see that the same thing, this blaming of murder on her speech is a line of defense taken only by Islamists and communists. The same remark we can see here.
The freebie debate is back at center stage, with Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal taking on the BJP especially on charges that his party has furthered this culture recently of offering doles that a state just cannot afford. It's not just about offering a minimum amount of electricity or water free, but about announcing doles like monthly grants without any benchmark of who actually needs it or deserves it. Is it not time to separate welfare from freebies and draw a line when it comes to what kind of lofty, superficial promises can be made during elections and in party manifestos? If a state cannot afford it, how can parties make promises? But greater than even the economic argument is the moral argument. Are such freebies announced during campaigning a way of buying votes? Elections have to be free and fair. Do such announcements pervert the electoral process and bring in an element of quid pro quo on the basis of something free that is being promised? Now, in April 2022, in a meeting of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with senior bureaucrats, two secretaries, while highlighting a popular scheme that was announced in a recent state election, which is already financially in bad shape, had said that such schemes are economically unsustainable. And they had also sounded a warning that such schemes could take the states down the same path as Sri Lanka. We all know what's happening as far as Sri Lanka's economy is concerned. Solicitor General has once again gone on record to say that if freebies are considered to be welfare, it will lead to disaster. Remember, the Solicitor General has batted for a panel to look into this that was first mooted by the Supreme Court as well. The Aam Aadmi Party has also now made itself a party as far as this case is concerned. They are saying that there is a difference between welfare schemes and freebies, but they come under attack that their freebies are actually freebies and not really welfare. What has the Supreme Court said? The Supreme Court has raised a red flag. It has said that the economy is facing serious issues due to quote-unquote freebie. The real issue is also this: exactly who will bell the cat? The Election Commission seems reluctant, the courts may not have full powers in this regard, and political parties can't see eye to eye. In this situation, does an all-party panel help? Can political parties sit together, come to some sort of a consensus? Can a panel mandated by the Supreme Court with various other representatives help? Who should lead such a panel? A retired judge or a constitutional body or the central government? It is not sufficient to just say that you have written off certain bad loans, and that is why what the Aam Aadmi offers as freebies is okay. These are apples and oranges. The two cannot be compared. Is it not misleading the country when you compare write-offs with freebies?
Absolutely not, Shivani. The intention or the rationale behind that is that when you can write off 11 lakh crore ka loan of the few favorite corporate friends, you could very well invest this money onto the public.
Writing off a loan and waiving off a loan are two different things.
I've been asking them this question, but they continue to repeat
Forget
it.
that 10 lakh crores have been written off, which doesn't mean it's not being recovered. In fact, 8.6 lakh crores out of that has been recovered in the last 8 years. Please see this, Shivani. And the gross NPAs are at its lowest at 5.9%. This is a government that is recovering the loans that your friend Congress gave away and made into NPAs. You have the audacity to lie. They lied about corporate tax reduction when it has increased by 28%.
आप केजरीवाल बताएं कि जितनी बात वो टीवी पे बोलते हैं और उनके प्रवक्ता टीवी पे आके बोलते हैं, वो बात उस सुप्रीम कोर्ट के रिकॉर्ड में क्यों नहीं ला रहे? अगर आपको लगता है कि हाँ 10 लाख करोड़ का लोन माफ हुआ और गलत माफ हुआ, तो आपको शर्म आ रही थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट को बताने में। सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आप केवल ये कहने चले आए, अश्विनी उपाध्याय की PIL मत सुनो, इस पे आप कमेटी मत फॉर्म करो, फ्रीबीज को मत रोको। क्यों भाई?
Firstly, see, there is a welfare scheme and there's a populist measure. I'm glad that you already began the debate by saying that free education and free healthcare is not an issue. When it comes to the concept of basic income, even that is an acceptable concept. Enough studies have been done on it, and it has shown no negative repercussions on the citizens of the country.
That's not
true. And I definitely object to this word freebie.
They make a promise. In Punjab. They already know that the Punjab was in 3 lakh crore debt, right? When they came into power. If they want, they are not able to. They want to fulfill the promises what they made. Why they came to Prime Minister and asked for a 51 lakh crore package? Why? You don't have money to run the state.
When it comes to welfare schemes, which are targeted schemes for the poorer sections, for the weaker sections of the society, the government seems to have a problem. Now, when we talk about targeted welfare schemes like minimum income support or any other welfare scheme which is to enhance, say, healthcare or education or to eradicate poverty, every single government, be it a state government or the central government, they have a responsibility to ensure inclusive development. No development is sustainable unless it's inclusive in its nature.
How do you get a nation to progress? Do you teach the women how to fish, or do you give them a fish every day? It's a very old theory, but it's a very relevant theory. You don't give a woman a fish every day. Rather, you teach her how to fish. Every time the topic of freebies and welfare comes up, the Aam Aadmi Party is quick to blame the BJP. But we have to understand what the Aam Aadmi Party does in its economic thinking is light years away from what the BJP does. A Mohalla clinic cannot be compared to Ayushman Bharat, because if that were the truth, the Mohalla clinics would have stood up to the responsibility in the pandemic. Did that happen? No, it did not happen. You cannot give a city free water to people who are earning more than 10 lakhs annually and call it welfare, because they can afford to pay their water bills. So can the free water scheme of the Aam Aadmi Party be compared to a Jal Jeevan mission by the BJP? Absolutely not, because there is no strategic targeting.
There has to be a mandatory financial statement as part of the election manifesto. It means whatever you are promising, you must mention that what you are promising, out of your total population, how many will be beneficiary, what is the amount you want to allocate, and what is the source of funding. Let the electorate should know, they should make an informed choice whether so much money for TV or for VCR or for scooty or mobile or whatever are they willing to fund? Because ultimately funding will come from either taxpayers or market borrowing.
First of all, government does not have any money to spend on its own, and what it is spending is taxpayers' money. And I would not spare any party here, be it the left, right, or the center. Every single party does this. And if it was a welfare scheme, let me first clarify to all panelists here, whatever political affiliations you might have, if it is a welfare measure, it is not announced before the election. Now, whether it is a color TV, whether it is a cycle scooter, I don't care what it is. But the primary fact that you announce it before an election clearly proves that it is a quid pro quo. So the state, the people are getting bribed. To put it long story short, governments do not have the authority to bribe the people for votes. And that too, it is being taken from my right pocket and given into my left.
We know how to fund all these things. And this is not as though these borrowings can go unlimited. We have certain principles. We have Article 283. We have the Consolidated Fund of India. So there are certain guidelines, certain principles. If we are going to borrow more than 3%, the union government will not allow us to borrow. So it is not going to, it's not as though we are just taking away money and giving it just for the sake of winning elections.
Constitutionally agreed policies. The EC cannot by itself do this, nor can the courts. There has to be a political consensus, and people must decide whether you want to destroy our growth path, which is such an urgent necessity in this competitive world where our rivals are growing very fast. We really need to be a bit sensible about this. I'm not saying to stop giving free water. Don't make it indiscriminate, as we are seeing it is happening. Free electricity, big problem. In Tamil Nadu, in Punjab, it's a big problem. We have to address these issues for the sake of the future of the country and, for our children and grandchildren.
I think the first important data point that we all should remember is the increasing income inequality that has accompanied growth in India over the last 50 years. Today, if we look at the World Inequality Database, we know that the bottom 50% of our population owns a very small proportion of our GDP. But the top 1% owns over 40% of our GDP. And a number of these, statistics come out every year about income inequality. So any debate around freebies or any kind of social protection mechanisms have to be in the context of understanding the growing income inequalities in India.
At this point of time, as a country, we need to decide, where do we spend our money? Do we spend our money on welfare measures so that we ensure that each citizen of this country has access to good education and good health care? So first, you have to make sure that the service, the subsidy scheme, whatever you want to call it, is universal. Once people have benefited, and the section which does not need, you can bring in these riders. But at the start, it has to be universal.
So on the one, she says that it should be aimed at everybody because we do not know how to target them. But I don't know, I think she forgets the fact that she's living in a country called India. And whether it's the Aadhaar card or and direct benefit schemes have been there. DBT has been there for a while. So those could have been used and are being used, in fact, extensively.
But the central question I also asked you, Reena, tomorrow if there is a panel, would you be agreeable?
Yes, as a panel we can discuss, but at the end of the day, in a democracy, this has to be decided between the voters and the government they elect.
A stunning case has come to light from agricultural villages in Tamil Nadu. Entire land of as many as 6 villages in Trichy district is being claimed as Waqf land by the Tamil Nadu Waqf Board. Yes, you heard it right. Not one mosque area or an Eidgah Maidan or patches of land. Entire villages, which are primarily Hindu population villages with centuries-old temples, are being claimed as belonging to the state Waqf Board in entirety. What's stunning is that despite no history of the Waqf Board or Islam in these villages, which are largely agricultural in nature, the local registrar refused to allow buying and selling of these lands held by locals in their families and settled for generations. To sell their own property, they were being asked to produce an NOC, a no objection certificate from the Waqf Board of the state. What that story has done is blown the lid of what could be possibly the biggest organized land grab in the country over the last 25 years. Now, why do I say organized? because the powers to the Waqf boards itself to declare and acquire virtually any land in the country comes directly from the Waqf Act of 1995. This act gives singular power to the Waqf boards, which comprise only of Muslims, to deem any land as theirs. In fact, it wouldn't be unfair to say that they are the judge, jury and executioner as per this act. How is a Waqf property identified? How is it even declared a Waqf property is frankly the clincher and the biggest concern over this act. So the Waqf board collects information on properties it believes to be belonging to the Waqf. It believes that there are certain properties that may belong to them, and then it conducts an inquiry into those properties. If the board is satisfied, it claims that the property belongs to the Waqf board, and then the decision of the board, unless modified or revoked by a Waqf tribunal, is final. You would be surprised to know that after the army and the railways, Waqf boards are the third biggest owners of land in the country. In the last decade or so alone, the amount of properties with Waqf boards has doubled in acres. So just this week, a bill has been introduced in Rajya Sabha to repeal the Waqf Act 1995. BJP MP Harnath has said that the Waqf decisions can't even be challenged in court, raising this as one of the objections against the act and the powers given to Waqf boards. First up, Raja Gopal, who belongs to the Mulikarupur village, owning agricultural land in Tiruchendurai. The village in question is actually joining us. What happened when you went to sell your land?
My name is N. Rajagopal. I belong to Mulikalambur village. When I went to sell my land to the registrar office in Chennai, they told me to get an NOC from Chennai. I asked them as to why they didn't inform earlier, for which they had no answers. I felt uneasy that very second. I fell ill and returned home soon. They told me to go to the Waqf board in Chennai and get an NOC. Otherwise, I couldn't register, I was told.
So this board, it put fingers on my house and say this is the Waqf property. I have to go before this board only. I cannot go to the court. I cannot go to any other place. I cannot go to the High Court. I have to go to this board, which has 7 members, and all the 7 members are Muslim.
So the point here is there is a temple which has been existing and does exist for the last 1000 or 1500 years, and that is a temple called as Padal Petra Kshetram, which means where around 270 odd temples where saints went and sang, and that is the temple. And this is a place where the majority community is Muttaraja community, who are also called Ambalathakarar, which means they are the protectors of the temple. They protected Srirangam temple, they protected Chandrasekhara Swami temple, which you are talking about. Now, how can they claim it as a Waqf property?
So when did this actually come in? So 1995 Waqf Act, and as JVC Sriram said rightly, there are hardly few Muslim families. Till 15 years back, there was not even a mosque in this village. These are predominantly Hindu villages. There was not even a mosque till 15 years back. So a mosque comes in 15 years back, and then these things are happening recently. Are we then to blame the state government? This is like adding insult to injury. We already have issues with temple lands being managed by the state government, and they are being mismanaged and they are being swindled. And now they have started having issues with residential houses, residential plots, the fertile agricultural lands, and to everybody's knowledge, this part of the region, this region in Tamil Nadu is the most fertile agricultural region ever, because this is where the Kaveri river is at its widest stretch. So till 2 years back, people known to me have registered, have done land transaction, house transactions, that they have bought and sold without any issues. So till 2 years back, people known to me have sold and bought, that there was no requirement of NOC. Then why did this suddenly come?
Article 14 says every citizen is equal. This act is totally against Article 14. Article 15 says you cannot discriminate Hindus and Muslim. This act discriminates. Article 25 says every citizen has the right, freedom of religion, right to religion. This act totally against Article 25. Article 26 says every citizen has right to manage, maintain their religious places. This act is totally against Article 26.
मसला ये हमारे पूरे समाज का है। जहाँ जहाँ भी ऑल इंडिया में हमारे समाज के लोग हैं जिनके पास हमारी इतनी प्रॉपर्टी है, उस प्रॉपर्टी को हटाने के लिए जबरन बना किसी लीगल कार्रवाई के हमारी जमीनों को अपने नाम कर लेते हैं फर्जी तरीके से, और बोलते हैं हमारे लोगों को वहां से बेदर करके ये वहां पे बैठ जाते हैं, फिर उस प्रॉपर्टी को ये बेचते हैं और खुर्द-बुर्द करके खा जाते हैं। उसका कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं है इनके पास। ना ये कोई चैरिटी वाला काम करते हैं। आज तक वक्फ बोर्ड ने एक मस्जिद को भी तामीर नहीं करवाया। मस्जिद भी अगर तामीर होती है तो आम जनता के पैसे से तामीर होती है, फिर भी ये कहते हैं कि साहब ये तो वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टी है। वो कैसे हैं जब आम जनता ने उसको बनाया है? इसी तरीके से मदरसे बनते हैं, उसको भी आम पब्लिक बनाती है, आम पब्लिक के चंदे से बनता है, फिर ये कहते हैं कि साहब ये तो वक्फ का है।
In Tiruchendurai, there are properties with survey number of small area can be given with full detail from the board, and people are getting all the answers and they are going back. But Tiruchendurai village, in our list, it was mentioned as 389 acres, Tiruchendurai village.
But how?
All the survey
Can you please explain to me the antecedents and the history of how this land came under the Waqf? That's what I'm asking you. What is your connection to this land? Who donated this land to you?
Government list is having village name and the surface area.
But sir, you should be able to explain to me what is the Waqf's connection to this land? Who donated this land to you?
These are all detail available, so that we are expecting all the detail from the archive department.
My question to you is, what is your problem with the survey, sir?
So why government is interfering in every?
But it's, you just said it comes under the government. इसमें interference क्या है? ये तो government के अंदर आता है.
गवर्नमेंट की पिताजी की प्रॉपर्टी नहीं है ये, जिसने दिया है वाकिफ ने दिया है।
तो यही तो पता करना चाह रहे हैं ना, मेरे साथ विक्टिम है, वो कह रहे हैं कि हमने तो दी नहीं है प्रॉपर्टी, तो उनकी प्रॉपर्टी ले कैसे ली?
सुनिए मैडम, आपके ऑफिस को बोल दिया जाएगा कि ये ऑफिस आदिल हसन का है, तो ये आप कोर्ट में फैसला होगा कि CNN IBN प्राइम टाइम में फैसला करेगा?
नहीं तो हम तो कह ही नहीं रहे ना कि हम फैसला कर रहे हैं, तो गवर्नमेंट ही तो कर रहे हैं ना सर्वे।
What is tribunal doing then?
That's the big question. What is the tribunal doing? And can you trust the Waqf tribunal to decide its own board's decisions?
What your chief executive officer is doing?
That's a question.
Waqf tribunal. Why not your CEO is appointing advocate for that? Why not they are approaching to High Court and Supreme Court?
Yeah, so that all of that is fine.
I have also gone through the Waqf Act, and the Waqf Act amended in 2013. There is no word regarding the Waqf Board. The Waqf Board can claim anybody's property and it will be full and final. Nothing. These are the misleading allegations from the people. There is no word in the Waqf Act that the Waqf Board words will be final. There is no word.
As of last date of I think 2021, 8,54,509 properties worth 8 lakh acres have been claimed as Waqf property. In 2009, number was just 4 lakh acres. How did the land increase? Secondly, during how unequal it is during partition, when Hindu refugees left Pakistan, those properties are given to Muslims who migrated to Pakistan. But the properties which belong to Muslims who migrated to Pakistan were not given to Hindu refugees. They were given to Waqf Board.
To the best of my legal knowledge, there is no such trust in any other religion. And in fact, to the best of my knowledge, anywhere in the world, and in Pakistan, even in Pakistan, where any trust or any organization has the kind of powers that the Waqf has. And that's actually quite tragic and quite shocking. Shivani, you were very right that, this is the largest owner of land in India, second only to railways and to the army. What's also interesting is, unlike any other organization, including the government, the onus shifts on the owner of the property to prove that the land belongs to him. Even the government does not have that right. It's quite amazing.
नहीं रही है, डॉक्टर्स की टीम पूरा इवैल्यूएशन कर ले, उसके बाद एक डिटेल मेडिकल बुलेटिन।
सर बात कर रहे हैं, क्या बात हुई, कुछ बताया, कॉन्शियस हैं, क्या कुछ है? जी,
अभी टीम उनसे बात भी कर रही है और उनके कहे अनुसार उनको जहाँ के ऊपर चोट है उस हिसाब से वो इवैल्यूएशन करेंगे। तो अभी ऑर्थोपेडिक्स जो कि हड्डी रोग विशेषज्ञ होते हैं और प्लास्टिक सर्जन जो कि एब्रेजन वगैरह अगर कुछ चोट लगती है उसका मेन उसी का इलाज हम कर रहे हैं। बाकी जो अंदर की पूरा एवोल्यूशन के बाद ही कोई हम देख पाएंगे कि अगर कोई गंभीर चोट है या नहीं है। फिलहाल कोई गंभीर चोट ऐसी लग नहीं रही है। अभी ऑर्थोपेडिक्स और प्लास्टिक सर्जन की टीम देख रही है।
सर, क्या यहाँ से हायर सेंटर रेफर करने का कुछ है अभी तक? ऐसा कोई आइडिया? यही होगा सारा इलाज?
एक बार इवैल्यूएशन पूरा हो जाए उसके बाद ही हम कुछ आगे बता पाएंगे।
सर, इस फाइनल कोर्ट में तो कोई
नहीं, अभी अंडर इवैल्यूएशन ही है, एक बार पूरा पता लग जाए फिर हम
बॉडी पेन
कितना
बता रहे सर? बॉडी पेन कितना बता रहे? किन किन हिस्सों में क्या कुछ? थोड़ा एक
बार पूरी डॉक्टर्स की टीम पूरा इवैल्यूएट कर ले, उसके बाद हम आपको
नाम बता दीजिए सर आप।
डॉक्टर आशीष यादव।
सर, ये एक बात और बता दीजिए, जारी करें।
एक बार इवैल्यूएशन हो जाने दीजिए, आधा घंटा 1 घंटा टाइम लग सकता है।
So, Dr. Ashish over there throwing light on the current condition of Rishabh Pant. He of course went on to elaborate how he is currently under evaluation but stable, and that a team of doctors is evaluating the condition of Rishabh Pant, saying that the team includes orthopedics and plastic surgeons, and they are awaiting a final evaluation of Rishabh Pant's condition. For more details, let's quickly go across to Anshul. Anshul, we heard what the doctor had to say. Of course, a detailed evaluation is still awaited.
So yes, a detailed evaluation is still awaited as to what is the kind of injuries that he has ascertained. But yes, what we have been told that he has a fractured leg at this point in time. Also, he has injured his back as well, and also there are injury marks on his face as well. So yes, what we have been told that Rishabh Pant initially dozed off while he was driving that car, and while he was returning from the national capital to his residence. But yes, the kind of injuries that he has sustained is definitely going to take a very, very long time for him to finally recuperate and join back the Indian team. But yes, the good news at this point in time is that he is in a very, very stable conditions, and the team of doctors that is looking into the entire matter are also very, very confident that he would be discharged from the hospital in the next few weeks, is what we have been told. But yes, the kind of incident that has happened, that has definitely sent shock waves across the globe, because remember, Rishabh Pant is a very, very popular figure and has a lot of friends when it comes to the cricket fraternity itself, because the manner in which he has been contributing to the Indian team from behind the stumps has definitely he has been able to make a lot of fans, and the kind of innings that he has played for the Indian cricket team in very, very crucial matches where he has come out and single-handedly won matches for India. So his fans are also praying that Rishabh Pant recovers at the earliest. But yes, currently the situation that it seems that yes, he has a lot of injuries, and it is going to take a very, very long time for him to recover back and get back on the playing field.
पर खच्चे उड़ गए हैं, पूरी तरह से जल गई है, आगे का हिस्सा जो है वो गाड़ी का पूरी तरह से जलकर खाक है। एक बहुत बड़ा जो है वो नुकसान यहाँ पर हो सकता था, लेकिन राहत की बात यह है कि जो खतरे से बाहर है ऋषभ, डॉक्टर्स की टीम जो है अभी तक उनको एग्जामिन कर पाई है। उसके बाद यही जानकारी दे रही कि पैर में उनके चोट है, थाई पोर्शन में जो है वो उनके यहाँ पर चोट लगी है, इसलिए हड्डी के जो डॉक्टर्स हैं वो लगातार उनको देख रहे हैं, उनके टेस्ट कुछ अभी होने बाकी हैं। इसके अलावा प्लास्टिक सर्जन, जैसा कि सर पे चोट के जो वीडियोस निकलकर सामने आ रहे हैं, जो जानकारी दी जा रही है, हल्की उनके सर पर चोट है और उसके लिए प्लास्टिक सर्जन की जो टीम है वो यहाँ पर देख रही है। लेकिन हाँ, जो और अदर बॉडी पार्ट्स हैं उनके बारे में अभी ये कहा जा रहा है कि वो टेस्ट के बाद ही कुछ कह पाएंगे। लेकिन हाँ, राहत की खबर यह है कि खतरे से बाहर है ऋषभ पंत। उनके तमाम फैंस जो हैं वो इस बात के लिए ईश्वर का शुक्रिया अदा कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि जो परेशानी जैसे इस खबर को मिली थी कि उनका ये एक्सीडेंट
Welcome back. It's part mythology, part fantasy, a little cartoonish, heavily derivative. Trying too hard to be noir gothic, but sitting somewhere between a hero movie and a video game. One thing is clear, audiences are not impressed. The trailer of 2023 release Agni Adi Purush has created a storm on social media. The film based on Lord Ram unites the talents of Prabhas of Bahubali fame and Om Raut, who directed Ajay Devgan starrer Tanaji the Unsung Warrior, the biggest Indian box office hit of 2020. But if early looks are anything to go by, the movie teaser is leaving people not just disappointed but actually aghast. The biggest issue people are raising is with Ravan's look. He is played by Saif Ali Khan in the movie. The bearded, very Islamic look is not impressing many. Ravan is also sporting a very razor-sharp, ultra-modern haircut, which was pointed out by many. Not to forget, In this movie's Ravan's religious markers are also not depicted properly, including the tilak or the tripund on his forehead, and people are not happy about that either. Then there is the depiction of Hanuman. The teaser shockingly shows him wearing leather. In fact, the same has been pointed out about Lord Ram himself. Look of the Vanar Sena is also being criticized. It's more ape than monkey and highly lifted from the Planet of the Apes franchise. Finally, blatant misrepresentation of the epic and the characters itself. For example, Ravan's chariot has been replaced by a demon / bat / bird, whatever you want to call it. You, of course, portrayed the iconic Sita character that we all remember. Today, when this movie is coming out based on Ramayan, based on Lord Ram's life, there is a Sita, of course, that is also played by a character, by an actor. What do you make of the criticism that is coming the way of this movie?
I really think that we should wait for the movie to come. And we really cannot jump to conclusion as to what it is. And like I said, that because of technology, possibly they're trying to mix the East and the West, turn the Ramayan into GOT and, you know, Hunger Games and everything put together, because they want to advance into more of VFX and, you know, make it one of those elite kind of a movie. These are not the subjects that you can create with East and West influence. You need to keep it authentic. You need to keep it the Treta Yuga, because that's where it was. Like GOT was in those era where they've shown that era, where they were honest about the period.
Hindus have become very sensitive and very skeptical of most of the Mumbai filmmakers. That has been due to long years of looking at the way Hindus have been misrepresented, abused, or even put in a wrong way. That has led to this kind of very, very, very sensitive reaction to anything that they see on the screen.
When you utter the word Ram, or when you utter the word Ravan, or even Jesus Christ, Sant Kabir, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, there is a certain image that comes to your mind. Now, we have grown up with that image in our mind, and it is very difficult for us to interpret anything beyond what the popular imagery is.
So if it really is Islamic, you know, when did a Muhammad Ghori or when did a, you know, Mahmud Ghazni started wearing a tripund on their forehead, a tilak on their forehead? When did they start worshipping, you know, a shivling? So let's not be juvenile in our comments, you know. Yes, I understand that certain creative liberties have been taken, but let's also not forget that he is a national award winning filmmaker like Om Raat, who gave us a wonderful film like Tanaji. He's somebody who puts years and years of research.
Days after the release of Mani Ratnam's movie Ponniyin Selvan, that depicts the early life of Chola Emperor Raja Raja Chola, a major controversy has erupted. First, it was national award-winning film director Vetty Maran, who said that Raja Raja Cholan was not a Hindu king and cinema has saffronized him. Now, veteran actor Kamal Haasan has also backed this statement after a special screening of this movie. Kamal said that during the time of Raja Raja, the concept of the Hindu religion was non-existent, and it was the term coined by the British for their convenience. Now, the term Hindu was primarily used by outsiders, foreigners west to us, to refer to Indians as per geography. Eventually, the term Hindu, though, began to denote religion, but also vast culture that was pertaining to India. So, technically, one could argue the word Hindu didn't exist under the Cholas. Maybe it became popular only after the 16th century. But Cholas were indeed practitioners of Hinduism. Their faith, beliefs, practices, architecture, their temples are all symbolic of that.
Cholas, their tutelary deity was the Nataraja at Chidambaram. The two portraits that we have in the Brihadishwara temple that show Rajaraja, both of them show him paying obeisance to the image of Nataraja. Their coronation was done there. The land measure that Rajaraja used was named after Adavallam. Among the metallic images that were given to the temple, there are totally 66 of them. 23 of them are of Hindu gods. In fact, Pullayar or Ganesha seems to be his favorite. 2 of them are actually made out of gold. And at the end of it, the 66th image is actually given by his guru, and that's Guru Ishana Shiva Pandita, and the images of the Guru himself.
See, my grandfather had the certificate, or in the registered land certificate, we had been mentioned as Siva Madam, not Hindu, not Christian, Muslim, or whatever.
this Hinduism or the Hindu name has been given to us by Britishers. That is a well-known fact.
Cholas actually followed all the six. They claim that they are the Surya Vanshis. They come from the Raghukulam. And then they even claim 38th king of their they are the descendants of Sri Rama. The second is they claim that they are that's a Surya Vanshi is a Shauram, which is one of the sect. The second is they claim that Vishnu was their first ever king, so which is they are Vaishnavites. They actually practice Shaivism. They built so many temples for Shiva. Even Rajaraja Chola is called the Shivapada Sekaran. So they are Shaivites. Their family deity is goddess Durga, so they are Shaktam. And their war cry is always Vetrivel Veeravel. So they have become to Kaumaram. And they started all their events or anything that they took an initiative, started with worshipping Lord Ganapati. So they are Ganapatyam. All the six sects of modern day Hinduism that we are calling, Cholas were actually living that on a day in and day out.
Now, actor Richard Chadda created a rather ugly controversy on social media today with a tweet on Galwan clash. In response to a tweet that mentioned the statement of a senior Indian Army personnel that the Indian Army is ready to take back Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on the orders of the Indian government, Richard Chadda made a rather insensitive, mocking reference to Galwan, saying, and I quote, "Galwan says hi." This tweet has drawn fire both on and off social media. Politicians, army veterans, fellow celebrities have all called it distasteful and insulting. She wrote that offending anyone was not her intention, and the three words that she has written that have been dragged into this controversy, she didn't mean it. She even added that her grandfather was a lieutenant colonel who took a bullet in the leg in the Indo-China war. So army is in her blood.
I'm not sure what Richa has, apologized for. If army was in her blood, I would say the tweet made by her was out of sheer ignorance and stupidity. And there's an idiom, they say fish is caught when it opens the mouth. So the ignorance is on full display. I think it's an insult to the martyrdom of all the soldiers, officers who have laid down their life, protecting our frontiers. It is not done.
See, I really don't understand why everyone and in the debates also people are giving so much importance to Richard Chadda's tweet. We are living in a democratic country, and we have discussed it before also many times in the debate that yes, we all have right to freedom of expression, and it totally depends upon an individual how an individual wants to express, and especially on a social media platform.
Her remark obviously is insulting to the martyrdom of the 20 brave hearts who laid down their lives in 2020. They were not there for a picnic. They were there to ensure that people like Richa Chadda and all of us can sleep peacefully and can carry on with our profession, which requires continuing. Second connotation of her remark, which is even more serious in my view, she said so in response to a statement by the Northern Army Commander General Dwivedi that we are ready to capture POK once the government gives a nod. So she was trying to mock his remarks, the remarks coming from a very senior, very responsible army officer who should know what he is doing and what he is saying.
IFFI international jury head Nadav Lapid's remarks on the film The Kashmir Files have evoked massive reactions through the day. While speaking at the closing ceremony of the 53rd International Film Festival of India, the Israeli filmmaker called the film a propaganda and a vulgar movie.
You have seen the film, will you ever call it vulgar and propaganda? I'm just asking you, just generally. Anything, will you say anything, if somebody invites you to your house, will you say this was vulgar dress you were wearing, even if it was vulgar? You don't say such things. You don't like a film, first of all, his job as a jury member is to say whatever he wanted to say. He wanted to say that I did not like the film. He could have said, I don't like the film, I don't like the theme, I don't like the costumes, I don't like the lighting. But to call it vulgar propaganda, he has no right. Only you have to be a vulgar person to think like that. For 32 years, they kept the genocide hidden, the tragedy of genocide of Kashmiri Hindus hidden, because it did not suit them. because it did not suit their narrative. One single line, one single scene, one single shot, if they can come out with and say this was about propaganda.
Do you sometimes feel tired with these attacks on the Kashmir files, just defending this movie day in, day out?
No, that's what they want me to do. They want me to get tired. I will never get tired, because I have the same intensity of energy when I'm talking about something truthful and something so hurtful as people who must have fought for the independence of this country. It took us 200 years to do that, because they believed in what they were doing. I believe in the sadness. I have gone through the sadness. So, but they think that I will ultimately, or Vivek will ultimately get tired of it and sort of say, okay, or become frightened that the onslaught of people, or suddenly people are calling me Anupam Kher is like this and Anupam Kher is like this, and I will suddenly hide behind a protected wall. No, I will not, because the more they will attack my tragedy or my people's tragedy, the more I will attack them for their insensitivity.
I often say, and you can see this on my Twitter handle, so you'll understand where I'm coming from, that the easiest way to scare somebody from listening to somebody just with an open mind is to label them. And when you use words like propaganda, that's a label. That's not a criticism. That's
Brilliant.
A label. So, Mr. Kher.
So wonderfully said. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this very, very special endeavor. And at the outset, I have to thank the union ministers who spared the time from their busy schedule to make this conversation happen. And also, one of them has spared their residence and their lawns for us to have this conversation in the winter sun. So, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, namaste, and thank you very much at the outset. And Muralidharan ji, thank you so much. Muralidharan ji, thank you so much for making the time and having this conversation. The endeavor, ladies and gentlemen, is to ask them, those who are part of government, those who are also active Karyakartas of the party as in the BJP, what their challenges are looking ahead into 2023, but more importantly, reflect on this very eventful year that is 2022 that's past us. The year that we emerged out of the pandemic, the year that the Prime Minister set a roadmap for us as our Azadi Ka Amrit Kal, the year when we completed 75 years of independence. So there's a lot that's happened. Let's start with the electoral gains and political aspect. 2022, Dr. Jitendra Singh started with elections. 2022 has ended with elections. And if you look at the scorecard, it's 5 for the BJP, 1 for Aam Aadmi Party and 1 for the Congress Party. Would you look at it as a successful year electorally for you?
No, certainly also, because under Prime Minister Modi, there have been many firsts, both in governance, in government, as well as in the electoral politics. I think this is for the first time Modi ji has given us a model which is sustainable. It has sustained for the last 21-22 years. He being the longest serving head of the government, first as Chief Minister and then as Prime Minister. So this is a model of governance, also model of a political culture which has sustained over 2 decades and promises to sustain even in future. The second hallmark of this is that it has defied the principle of diminishing returns. Any model, whatever be the domain, tends to lose its shine, also its acceptance with the passage of time. Here, he has provided a model which provides increasing dividends with each passing day, both electorally, also governance, also as far as India's esteem in the international fora is concerned. So I think this is a kind of a landmark year, or also a turning point as India completes its 75 years of independence, both in terms of governance as far as our approach towards handling both matters related to government are concerned, and also politics as well. And I think this is also a year which has given us huge esteem as we move on in the course of conversation in the various departments, in the various areas which have raised India's stature. Now, for example, now I'll quote one example and then we can move on. Space technology. Our space journey started when Russia or the then Soviet Union and USA were on the verge of landing a human being on the surface of moon. And we were just starting. We were just singing nursery rhymes, Chande Mama Dur Ke and all that.
Correct.
But so much of potential and passion was there among the founding fathers, Sarabhai and others. And Prime Minister Modi, after he took over, gave it a quantum jump by liberalizing certain barriers, by doing away with the taboos of the past, by opening the space department to the private sector.
Yeah.
The result today is that we have so far launched as many as about 385 foreign satellites. And you will be amazed when I tell you, out of 386, 351 have been launched during the Modi regime. So almost 90% of the foreign satellites launched during this regime. We have earned about 220 euros out of this, out of which 187 million euros earned during
so
the
20
Modi.
million euros and about 187 million euros have come.
And if you take in the terms of the American satellites, because I mean it's a matter of pride that you are also launching US out of $115 million made so far, 98 have been earned during this regime of last 8 years. So it was 90% of foreign satellites. So much of credibility, so much of trust has been earned during the Modi era.
I think it started when the PM said that at the what costs a Hollywood movie like Gravity, for a lesser cost we were able to send a ship towards Mars, and India becomes an active space market. So obviously it adds to the levels. But I'll go back to the electoral aspect, that a lot of it is happening towards the north of India. South of the Vindhyas, the Prime Minister after 29, his first 19 victory, one of his first trips was to Guruvayur. South, there is engagement with Tamil, trying to push Tamil as a language. But is the BJP electorally still vulnerable south of the Vindhyas, Muralidharanji? Let's start from there.
No, I would say that during the last 1 year, there has not been many elections, or there has not been a general election in South. But South, I am definitely of the view that, say for example, I would consider Telangana and of course Karnataka being with us. It will definitely continue to be with us.
There's a flux there, so that's why I'm asking in terms of leadership.
See, before every 5-year term ends, there has been such happenings have been there. But ultimately, once the assembly elections happen, I am sure that Karnataka we will be able to retain it with us. And along with that, I would say that all the other 3 states, 4 states in that sense. Telangana is of course making really good progress. Tamil Nadu for the first time, because Kerala, Andhra, BJP has been there. Tamil Nadu BJP, even though we had won some seats with the support of our alliance partners, now for the first time, Tamil Nadu BJP has been able to become the primary opposition party, raising issues of corruption against the DMK government. And now nobody can accuse BJP that it is a North Indian party, because Narendra Modi is the only Prime Minister in the history of India who has in every occasion who has been quoting from Tamil scriptures, Tirukural, Tiruvalluvar, all this. He has been speaking on these aspects not only domestically, even in international fora. In UN, Prime Minister has spoken many times. So Tamil people now don't feel that the campaign by the other parties, that this party is not belonging to the South Indian culture, Dravidian culture, it is some North Indian party trying to impose Hindi. That is only a political campaign now. People don't take that. So that's why I feel that in the coming election, when 24 Lok Sabha election happens, we will have good progress, we will have good gains in all these states.
Yeah, I am asking you that, and I'll start with you and then I'll come to Jitendra Singh ji, is because 2019 elections, soon after that, the target for Lok Sabha 2024 was set at nearly 330 seats. For that to happen, then this entire belt of 7-8 states, say Odisha, Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, these states have to really contribute bulk of the numbers. Otherwise, that number is not going to be achievable. You think that is going to happen, and you
will
think
see
that
you will see
effort is
that
taken.
happening. You will see the. I think it would not be proper for me to explain the contours of that. But 23, you will see a lot of things happening.
You see, oh,
Prior to the election.
so you are saying 23, a lot of things will happen
Yes.
prior to the elections. But the same challenge also comes in terms of retaining your existing bench. So
No, certainly, I think to add to what Murli ji was saying, Modi ji is our greatest asset. Asset for the nation, for the people of India, and also for the party. And even if you rise above the political lines, I think this is one Prime Minister, if you research over the last 75 years, who has the capacity to bind the entire heterogeneous Indian subcontinent into a single cord. We have seen him traveling north, south, even northeast.
Yeah.
So wherever he goes, regardless of whether the state is being ruled by the BJP or even other party, people, queue around just to welcome him. So he's kind of a common cord running. And in a country as heterogeneous as India, which is very difficult to, because you have hundreds of lifestyles, hundreds of food cultures, dress preferences, and we have seen prime ministers in the past. Some of them had their catchment area in central India, some of them primarily in north, some of them, but you didn't have a pan-India presence. Now, from my experience in Northeast, I tell you, in 2014, when the government came in, and we used to organize, a Prime Minister, I think in his first term itself, visited Northeast at least 50 times. So a lot of effort and a lot of, commitment has gone behind. It was number of times he visited Northeast so far is more than the number of times put together of all the Prime Ministers in the past. And even some of the remotest states.
Yeah.
So he has actually struck a chord. Heart to heart, emotional cause. So I'll tell you, in the early years, in 2014 itself, he was to come to Meghalaya, which was then ruled by another party, other people. We didn't have much of a base politically as a party. We also requested for a rally, which we got, and we were then apprehensive, how would we manage? But believe me, without any effort from our side, when Modi ji landed there were small school children in their beautiful uniforms queuing up right from the airport up to the destination, holding hands, like these small children do, and wearing masks with Modi ji's face. So I think that is something, and it's been a great advantage for this country. That's a turning point. You have, as a head of government, somebody who is equally, identified with across the country by all sections, by all kinds of people.
So it's fantastic that we have somebody, or the party has somebody like a leader like Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But let me ask you, are you caught between your duties as in governance and government and also as a party karyakarta? Because Bharat is perennially in an electoral mode. So does that...
No, I don't think so, because I feel both are complementary. In the sense that Prime Minister has been always focusing on party becoming a bridge between the people and the government. So as functionaries in the government, it gives us exposure to the common man. If I am not a party worker and I am limited to only my governmental duties, I would be cut off from the society, or I would be cut off from the hard realities of the society. So when I travel as a party karyakarta, beyond what I am a minister, it gives me a lot of inputs, exposure, which we try to solve through the government mechanism. So I have never felt that I am away from the party or I am away from the government. So for example, when I travel anywhere in the country, people come to me because I deal with passport organization. So people come to me issues related to passport, people come to me issues related to their problems abroad. So these issues, ultimately, it gives me those inputs and I have to solve it through the mechanism of the government. So I have never felt that that's a big issue.
But let me ask you this. 2022 also saw India change its posture strategically when we tried to be equidistant in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we tried to say that we are neither aligned with the US nor aligned with Russia, where we tried to say we want to do, External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar talked about multilateralism and a multilateral, multipolar world. So India was exercising a certain level of strategic autonomy. Did that come at a cost? Is that coming at a cost for Bharat?
I don't think that, because this is not something that has been newly formulated in 2022. It has been there earlier also. For example, we were part of Quads.
Correct.
We were also part of BRICS, where both Russia and China is there. And on this side, we have Australia and US. So, we are now become a country which has got connection with every other country in the world. And including the advanced economies or the developing nations, they consider that India is the link between them. So, whether it is Africa or whether it is the advanced economies like US or UK or Russia or even China, we are on our terms. But it doesn't mean that we are on with somebody and against somebody. So, when Ukraine happened, we are on talking terms with both.
Correct.
That is why Prime Minister is the only leader in the whole world who could tell Russians that this is not the era of war and diplomacy and dialogue is the solution. So that's the greatest strength of India. So that strength of India is now being appreciated. Many of these, since I am more in charge of Africa, many of the heads of states, the governments and heads of states of Africa has told me that Indian Prime Minister is the only person who can speak like this. And India can, even Pakistani leaders have been appreciating that India has been able to hold on to its position.
Correct.
So that's, in fact, it has not come at a cost. Of course, we have been taking that view in the true spirit of that, because we want consensus to be built across the world. So contentious issues, now people look to us, that India should take the lead.
Yeah, but these are also nations from where narratives like RSS, BJP's political Hindutva, Hindu fascist, Hindu nationalist leader, Hindu nationalist party, these kind of narratives are also spun. So, do you encounter that in your dealings, because you are also saddling a gamut of other, ministries?
Anand, now, as far as the issue that you were discussing with Murli ji, I think in the international fora also, and that has a bearing on these perceptions which they carry about India. We often we often also refer that Prime Minister Modi is the longest serving head of government.
Yeah.
What is not often referred to is that he is also among the senior most leaders in the world, senior most heads of government. During Modi's tenure, you've seen presidencies changing in USA. You have seen prime ministers changing one after the other in UK, in all the other countries as well. So he is also looked upon as a kind of person who would give them cues, also
He's a
show
global
them
leader.
As a global leader.
global leader who can also give a lead. And I would say that world today is also ready to be led by India under Modi. Now it's up to us, the commoners, to prepare ourselves, to contribute to that role under Prime Minister Modi. So that is one aspect. So that is also leading on to the change of perception. Because if there are perceptions like this about BJP, it's also because we didn't get much of an exposure. For about half a century, we were not in power. And as far as you were asking about the Karyakarta, I think one peculiar feature of BJP is that once a Karyakarta, always a Karyakarta. His responsibility may change, his position may change, but that remains ingrained. And as was rightly being said by Murli ji, because BJP is a party totally dedicated to the cause of nation, and therefore government becomes an instrument to carry forward that agenda of our organization. And these perceptions were created by those vested interests who wanted to keep this organization away.
Correct.
Because they were feeling threatened from this ideology which was so much grounded in Mother India. Now I tell you, in 2014 when I went to the Northeast the first time, I had never been to Northeast before that. That was first time when I landed in Guwahati. I was wearing all woolens because I thought largest river of the country, Brahmaputra, and I know how thand it would be. And then I realized that it was,
quite equatorial, the climate is,
moderate throughout the year, so I had to remove all. But there I realized so much of perception कि अब ये बीजेपी वाले आ गए हैं, आरएसएस वाले आ गए, हमारा मीट बंद करा देंगे, हमारा खान पान, हमारा रसोई. So it took a lot of effort actually for us. We would tell them, I was visiting houses of all and sundry, and I would ask them, now I had meal with you, did I peep into your kitchen? So that perception was by motivation created. When we set up, for example, our under the presidentship of Amit Shah, a campaign was taken up to have one, BJP office, district level, on all these states, and in Northeast we didn't have in the state level. First time when it was set up in Mizoram, to begin with, we couldn't even find office bearers. So then, with a lot of effort, we had one senior person, a lady, who accepted to become the president of the Mahila Morcha. And since this process was going on, so in 2 months' time, I went there about thrice. When I was there the third time, she said, I want to have a word with you separately. And she took me aside and she said, now this is your third visit in 2 months, and there's a whisper going around that you are coming here because there is a plan to start conversion. I said, ma'am, do you think so? She said, no, I know, it's not like that. But this is something which is being built up. So what is the answer that I have to do? I said, if you have to give the answer, then the best answer would be that if this was our agenda, then this would be a country of 130 million Hindus, which is not so. Mizoram is, virtually a Christian state.
Yeah.
So I think
those
now
who ran the conversion over the decades were now coming out to say that
yes,
BJP is coming
exactly.
to
so
do conversion.
Yeah, pot calling the kettle black for vested reasons. And with Prime Minister Modi having, gained acceptability across these sections, this has helped. His presence has helped us also to get over this misperceptions which were being created about this organization.
Right. And adding on to what Jitendra Singh ji mentioned, to your question of these narratives being spun from these countries, I won't say that any country as such is trying to spin this narrative. Of course, there are people, some of them our neighbors, who are trying to use some groups in some of these countries to set this narrative. But those countries as such, the governments, they understand the position of India, and they are very clear that India is not trying to become a sort of at their cost or this according to this narrative. So India has been considering, as the Prime Minister mentioned this time in G20 slogan, it is one world, one future, one family. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the concept of India. So that everybody understands. There is no issue in that. Because we are the only country which has come to the help of those who were in need. Whether it was during disasters, whether it is for connectivity, whether it is for infrastructure projects, or when the world was facing the pandemic.
But how is it that this narrative of this RSS BJP, Hindutva nationalist, fascist forces, he's a Hindu nationalist prime minister. Now, these are terms which are used by top, magazines and top voices there, and it gets echoed over in Pakistan. Similar stories said down in Kerala, similar stories said by other voices in the opposition. How is this?
No, that's why either Pakistan is picking up from what opposition politicians are doing here, or opposition politicians are picking up from what Pakistan is trying to say. Either way, it's not good for the country. But at the global level, except Pakistan, you won't find a single country who is saying that India is now under the control of RSS. RSS is dictating terms, or RSS is trying to set a fascist agenda. This nobody is saying.
Quite in contrast.
And in fact, in the Organization of Islamic Countries, Pakistan was trying to use that OIC. There were opposition from Muslim countries. So even Pakistan had to say that